Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest, absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs. Hey, y'all. Welcome to this week's show. Boy, it's a beautiful fall day, and I tell you, it has been just an incredibly beautiful fall week in the mountains of North Carolina. I have been spending time chopping firewood, and the temperature's been going down into the 30s, and already been having a fire in the fireplace. I love it this time of year in the mountains. You know, I've got a big old stone fireplace that was built in the 1940s, huge thing, and you have to have a roaring fire in there for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours just for the stone to heat up, and then it just radiates heat throughout. And it's really pleasant to be sitting there in the evenings with that crackling fire and, not too cold. I mean, it's just been getting down to, around 40, upper 30s at night. Beautiful, crisp days. There's no color to the leaves, though, yet. Y'all tourists don't go running up here. Still a few weeks away from the leaves turning colors, and the roads will be packed with leaf blowers. One thing, if you do get out to the mountains of North Carolina, that's really neat, if you get a chance to see it, go out toward Haywood County, which is heading out toward Cherokee. It's the far western part of the state. There is such a cool thing. It's called the Shadow of the Bear. At just a very specific time each year, the sunlight hits the top of a mountain just perfectly, and all the mountains are just covered in, gold and orange and red leaves, and a perfect silhouette of a black bear shows up right on that mountain. And it's great. Go take a look at it. It's just one of the really cool things up here, like the um, Brown Mountain Lights and oh, that other one. I can't remember the name of it. There's this imprint of a giant hand. I mean, like literally a giant put his hand down on the mountain. It's been I guess a relic, a sort of a sacred place for the Cherokees for hundreds, thousands of years. It's really cool too. You need to go take a look at that if you get a chance. Today, I wanted to talk about a really interesting family or two related families of herbs that are, specifically on the mind of any herbalist in the mountains this time of year because we are getting ready to look for ginseng. Ginseng will turn brilliantly gold, the leaves, in the fall. And that's when you can see it in the woods. It'll have that nice little clump of red berries up top. But those gold leaves are what show you what ginseng is. In early America, the four most sought after herbs, I think without a doubt, would first of all be sassafras. Sassafras was considered a cure for various venereal diseases, and the early settlers made a fortune shipping sassafras to Europe. Next would certainly be ginseng. Ginseng is such a wonderful tonic. It's what we call an adaptogen. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next, after that, would have been golden seal. Golden seal is useful against infections. Golden seal is good for the lungs and various disorders. It has berberine in the roots. Berberine is also found in your barberry and Oregon grape and coptis or gold thread. Golden seal, as I've mentioned, was significantly overharvested, so we always encourage people to use alternatives to golden seal or to grow it yourself. You can grow golden seal pretty easily. and just try not to buy it on the market. And actually, the barberries have much more berberine. I mean, really, Oregon grape is a stronger source of berberine than golden seal. But fourth to that, and probably actually the most popular for sale within the borders of the United States, the colonies in early America, was sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla, the oddly spelled herb, it's spelled like Sarsaparilla, and some people say sarsaparilla. It was a very, very popular tonic. It was considered a cure-all. You may remember old westerns where the cowboy walks into the bar and instead of ordering whiskey, he'll ask for a sarsaparilla. Well, sarsaparilla was a popular root beer, and one of the main reasons is it was considered to increase testosterone. Along with ginseng, these were both popular herbs for sexual potency, erectile dysfunction, whatever you want to label it. It's very interesting, and these are two very closely related plants, the ginseng and the sarsaparilla. But this is where we're really going to get into the weeds here. These are adaptogens, okay? Adaptogens are herbs that help the body deal with stress. It doesn't just mean when you're like stressed out, you know. No, it's physical stress. It helps you recover from an illness. It helps you, it increases endurance when you're doing work or exercise. They tend to work on the glandular system and they do influence hormones. American ginseng and the Aralia family are very closely related. The Aralia family and the Smilax family are very closely related. The original sarsaparilla was a member of the Smilax family found in South America, which is why the word has an odd spelling. It was, not an English word. The double L kind of indicates it was a Spanish word. So the Smilax family, we more commonly known as green briar. Yeah, those annoying briars that grow in your yard, all covered in spines and prickles, and you're always trying to tear them out, and the roots go so deep. That's the Smilax family. The original sarsaparilla, being a South American herb, wasn't very widely found in North America, obviously, but we have a wild sarsaparilla, which is actually an Aralia. Okay, have I confused you? Well, probably have. Just remember this, the original sarsaparilla is a Smilax. The American wild sarsaparilla is an Aralia. Aralia family also includes such herbs as spikenard and devil's club. These are powerful adaptogens, which are closely related to ginseng. Their properties are somewhat similar to ginseng, but they all have their various strengths. In the Aralia families, you have Aralia californica, Aralia hispida, Aralia humulus, Aralia nudicalis, Aralia racemosa. There are probably a couple others. So all of these are fairly interchangeable, and that's what's really interesting about the history of sarsaparilla in America. Sarsaparilla was literally thought to be a cure-all. The medical books of early America, the medical dispensatories and all the pharmacy manuals and doctors' books talked about sarsaparilla being an almost miraculous cure. I mean, when people were like left for dead, someone would give them a tea of sarsaparilla and they'd almost like come back to life. I mean, it was literally thought to be a cure-all for almost any condition and a general tonic and something that increased one's ability to work and increase, everything about a person that they wanted to be better. Well, as I said, we didn't have native Smilax sarsaparilla. We had Aralias. Okay, so they began using spikenard interchangeably with sarsaparilla. Spikenard is actually an Aralia, but the properties are so very similar. Okay, the wild sarsaparilla. The other is the various members of the Smilax family. Yeah, those annoying green briars. Cat briar, another plant called wild sarsaparilla, was probably used more than any of the Aralias in early American use as sarsaparilla. So is an interesting vine called carrion flower. I've got some of this growing around outside. I'm going to go pull up. I can probably get some cat briar and some carrion flower and show those in the next video I do. So look for that. These are genetically more similar to the original sarsaparilla, but functionally not quite as strong as the Aralias that came to be known as sarsaparilla. So if I haven't confused you enough by now, I'm hoping you're following this. Let's get into how to identify these as explained by Thomas Elful in Botany in a Day. We'll start with the ginseng family because everybody's interested in ginseng. Literally, at times, the ginseng root has been worth more than gold by weight. It's Panax ginseng. This is American ginseng, which is very similar to Chinese ginseng, is different than Siberian ginseng, which is actually an Aralia. So let's just confuse it a little more. Ginseng's not always ginseng, and sarsaparilla is not always sarsaparilla, but all of these plants are adaptogens. Mr. Elpo tells us in Botany in a Day, the next time you see a building covered with ivy, stop and notice the umbels of flowers or berries. Note that they form single umbels, not compound, like the closely related parsley family. These plants typically produce very small greenish-white flowers with 5 small, separate sepals, 5, sometimes 4 to 10, separate petals, and usually 5 stamens. The stamens are alternate with the petals. The flowers are regular and may be either unisexual or bisexual. The ovary is positioned inferior. It consists of 5, sometimes 2 to 15, united carpels, with the partition walls present forming an equal number of chambers. It matures as a red or purple berry with 1 seed per carpel. The fruit splits apart at the carpels in some species. Some species produce flowers and berries in dense heads or elongated spikes. The plants of this family prefer moist environments. Worldwide, there are 70 genera and 700 species. The genera below are native to North America. Volatile oils are common in the ginseng family. They are useful as diaphoretics to stimulate sweating. English ivy also contains volatile oils and is very bitter. It has been used externally to treat dermatitis, inflammation, and burns. Ivy has been used internally to expel parasites and to treat gout, rheumatism, and bronchitis. But caution is advised since the plant is mildly toxic, probably due to the triterpene saponins. Phara is a common houseplant of the same family. Now, this is interesting because in British herbal tradition, English ivy was widely used. In America, it's generally an ornamental that usually gets out of control, kills trees, and climbs all over people's houses. So, if you have English ivy in your yard or in the general vicinity, look up the use. See what Culpeper said about it. See what Maud Grieve said in a modern herbal. And, it is a useful plant, and I do collect some for herbal use. But was focusing more on the Aralias and ginseng. He starts with Aralia, wild sarsaparilla, or spikenard. See, that kind of clears it up. He says Aralia is wild sarsaparilla or spikenard. Wild sarsaparilla is considered to be a substitute for the true sarsaparilla, which is a Smilax, and either may be used for flavoring root beer. Medicinally, wild sarsaparilla contains an acrid resin. It is diaphoretic and stimulant. Remember, diaphoretic means it induces sweating and helps you break a fever. It also has demulcent properties. That means like moisturizing. Tea of the root is commonly used for colds and coughing, even pneumonia. This plant can also stimulate menstruation if it has been delayed by stress. A poultice of the root is used on burns, sores, ringworms, and skin eruptions. It is also used for intestinal gas and is reportedly a strong antidote for deadly poisons. So, very useful plant, and he doesn't even get into its adaptogenic abilities. The next is one of the most rare of the Aralias in North America. It's one of the hardest to find and the most expensive. It's also one of the largest. It actually is the largest. It's called Devil's Club. That's Oplopanax. Now, it grows mainly in the Pacific Northwest, but some does grow in the mountains of New York and up into Maine. Somehow, some got transplanted to my area, and a little bit of it survived. I don't know if a bird carried the seed or if an enterprising herb grower tried to bring some down from New York to grow it, but I do occasionally stumble across Devil's Club or Oplopanax in my yard. Well, not in my yard, but in the woods surrounding the house. and it's a real find when I find it, and it's one that I need to start marking when I do, because according to botanists, it doesn't grow in my area at all. So I need to actually take someone from the university out and show that to them sometime if I ever find another one again. It's a funny thing about being in the woods. When you spot a plant, you think, I'm going to come right back to the spot. I know exactly where it is. You'll never find that plant again unless you mark it. Trust me. Opal or devil's club is used similarly to Aralia as a respiratory stimulant and expectorant for chest colds. It also has a history of use as a hypoglycemic to lower blood sugar and reduce or eliminate the need for injected insulin in cases of adult onset diabetes. A poultice of the root has analgesic properties. A tea and bath of the root is used for rheumatism and arthritis. Herbalist Keith Hess has reported that cut stalks will often take root when inserted in moist ground. Yeah, so apparently it is easily propagated, and maybe somebody did that. Very near my property was a nursery that specialized in growing medicinal herbs. So chances are they transplanted some, and some of it survived and got loose. And then ginseng. Ginseng is rich in volatile oils, used especially as a diaphoretic, but also to counteract nausea and the double vision that can accompany dizziness. Like I said, he does not get into the adaptogenic properties. I'm doing a whole show on adaptogens. I'll just sum it up real quickly. Like I said, adaptogens help the body deal with stress, recovery, and endurance. A lot of times they bring more oxygen into the blood. If you think about it this way, the reason adaptogens have been so very popular for thousands of years, the most sought after herbs. And the reason scientists can't really prove they work, they really can't prove they do anything. I mean, other than what he just stated, diaphoretic and um, helps clear congestion, all that, is because these herbs are very individualistic. They're what we call energetic herbs. They act differently on the person that takes them. If you had, say, three people, you've got one that is a high endurance marathon runner, just a fantastic shape athlete. Okay. You've got one normal guy that's, a little out of shape and, he's okay. I mean, he can walk a mile without getting winded, but he's not going to run a marathon. And you've got someone who's really sick and weak and probably maybe recovering from an illness. And you gave each of these people ginseng or spikenard or reishi mushrooms or, any of the adaptogenic herbs for a period of time, and then you test them by having them, say, walk a half mile and ask them or monitored somehow how they felt afterwards. The high endurance, great shape athlete would probably feel a major difference. He'd be like, wow, this is great. I can go out and run a marathon now. This was a warm up. I'll do it 10 more times. The person who has been sick and recovering from an illness and is very weak may say, you know what, I had a little more energy than I expected. I'm not as winded as I thought I would be. And the guy that's just in average shape may not feel anything at all, because that ginseng is going to act differently for each of those people. That's what adaptogens do. That's why they're so valuable. That's also why their use is so hard to prove. Now, let's get into the greenbrier family, the Smilax, the very closely related Smilax. And the reason I think this is important, like I said, ginseng can often be worth more than its weight in gold. People will shoot each other over ginseng. It's pretty common in the mountains where I live, actually. People getting into fights and killing each other over ginseng patches. Or a mountain where their family's been harvesting ginseng for generations, and suddenly someone comes in, and even though it may be public property, they feel they have a right to it, and the other person thinks they have just as much of a right to it, and, guns or knives are drawn. It happens. It happens a lot. That's just that's just part of our culture, for better or for worse. And pretty strong, resilient, tough people. It is usually for the better, but sometimes it can get a little rough. But everybody probably has briars growing in their yard. I mean, who has not, if you've done any yard work, tried to pull briars out of bushes or down from trees or just, there's some little patch of juniper at my mother's house down in the sandhills, and every year I go down and help with the yard work, and I end up pulling briars out of this ground-covered juniper. It's one of my least favorite things to do. So these herbs are considered worthless. In effect, They are mild adaptogens, pretty much interchangeable with sarsaparilla, which is a Smilax. So, we've been tearing them out and throwing them away. We should be using them for herbs that are free. Not only that, but they're edible. The green briar leaves, all the briar leaves, okay, are edible. They usually eat them in the spring when they're, tender. And the shoots of some of them can be used interchangeably with asparagus when they're just fresh shoots coming out of the ground. So they're really good herbs to know. And one of them that I'm going to show in the video I'll do probably tomorrow is called carrion flower. It's a really unique plant because the flower, as the name would imply, smells like rotting meat to attract flies to help it pollinate. That flower, if you can stand the smell, is also a wild edible, but the whole plant's edible, and it's an interesting one because it has no thorns. But these are briars. Any briar, anything in the Smilax has similar herbal use to sarsaparilla and thus to Aralia, spikenard, and all that, and even ginseng. So keep that in mind and, look at the bounty we're surrounded with if you're lucky enough to have a weedy yard, right? So Mr. Elpel says greenbrier is distinct from other lilies, it's in the lily family, by the way, because it is a vining plant with tendrils, plus flowers and umbels. Its fruits are berries. He includes under smilax greenbrier, carrion flower, and sarsaparilla. The young leaves and shoots are edible as a salad green or pot herb. The roots contain a gelatin-like substance that can be extracted by crushing and washing them. Medicinally, a tea of the root is listed as diaphoretic, carminative, diuretic, and as a blood purifier. It has been used in the production of root beer. See also Aurelia in the ginseng family. So there we have it. This is an interesting family of herbs. Some of them are common, some of them are very rare. They're all very useful. And I want to give you some specific indications here of spikenard, for instance, looking at um, plants for a future. Spikenard, the root is antispasmodic, carminative, deobstruent, deodorant, diuretic, emmenagogue, laxative, nervine, sedative, stimulant, and systematic. It is an excellent substitute for valerian, um, taken internally in the treatment of epilepsy, hysteria, and convulsive affections, nervous indigestion, insomnia, depression, and tension headaches. Externally, it is used as a deodorant and to treat rashes. A paste of the root is used externally to treat hemorrhoids. The root is harvested in the autumn and dried for later use. Sarsaparilla official, the original, that's Smilax aspera. The root is alterative, demulcent. Now, alterative is one of those phrases I've explained before. It's kind of hard to define. It basically means a gentle tonic bringing the body back into health. So, alterative, demulcent, depurative, diuretic, stimulant, and tonic. It is one of the best depurative medicines and is used as a springtime tonic and general body cleanser, usually with a woody nightshade, which we won't get into right now. And we'll compare that to the Smilax. Simple Smilax bononoxus greenbrier. See some right off the porch right here. The root is diuretic. It is used in the treatment of dropsy and urinary complaints. A tea of the root is used to help expelling afterbirth. Reports that the roots contain the hormone testosterone have not been confirmed. They might contain steroid precursors, however. The stem prickles have been rubbed on the skin as a counter irritant. A tea made from the leaves and stems has been used as a general tonic and also in the treatment of rheumatism and stomach problems. Wilted leaves are applied as a poultice to boils. And similarly, for the carrion flower, one that I mentioned, eating the fruit is said to be effective in treating hoarseness. The parched and powdered leaves have been used as a dressing on burns. The wilted leaves have been used as a dressing in boils. The root is analgesic. A decoction has been used in the treatment of back pains, stomach complaints, lung disorders, and kidney problems. You're starting to see some of these similar qualities that are showing up in all of the Smilaxes, all of the Aurelias. And it's really interesting. In the 80s, people started looking into whether these these plants, the roots had testosterone-like properties, and they were very popular as supplements for weightlifters and athletes in the, I guess, the 70s and 80s before they started making kind of more advanced stuff. You would see this a lot in the health food stores. It never has been proven, but I do know a lot of old weightlifters that still swear that sarsaparilla is one of the very best anabolic tonics that they would take for recovery after a workout. And, who knows? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I have absolutely no idea. I guess that about wraps it up for these two families. As you can see, a lot more research needs to be done on them. Most of the Smilax are more what we would call folk medicine. It's said that sarsaparilla was such a popular medicine in earlier America that it was absolutely hated by doctors because people would use sarsaparilla for all their ailments instead of going to a doctor or taking the doctor's prescriptions. But it was also so popular that it was usually not actual sarsaparilla. It was adulterated. Well, obviously, if you've got like 15 different varieties of briars that can be used and 3 or 4 varieties of Aralias that can be used instead of the almost impossible to get true sarsaparilla out of South America, and all of those can be called sarsaparilla. There was a whole lot of flexibility and leeway in what might be called sarsaparilla, wild sarsaparilla, hairy sarsaparilla. There are all these different sarsaparillas, and also other herbs might be included. And it was one of the main complaints of the medical industry that led to regulation of the drug industry and getting rid of a lot of the patent medicines. So it's an interesting history. It's really interesting to look into, but obviously we've been taking a lot of these plants for granted, and yeah, they're very useful. So y'all get out there and enjoy this beautiful fall weather, and I will see you again next week.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.